Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but first let's hear from our podcast sponsors. We want to thank Final Forms for their support of the Educational AD Podcast. Final Forms is the industry leader in registration, but you have to know this. Final Forms is more than just registration. Final Forms is a team, it's technology, and it's a service that provides schools with compliance, communication, and risk management solutions. Final Forms can help stakeholders with mobile accessibility. It has reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms that go with athletics. Final Forms can help with team communication, with attendance, and even certification management for coaches. And for ADs, Final Forms can help with eligibility, with rosters, and with all the reports that come across your desk. And it does this using secure language translation and ADA compliance. You know, it's time for you to talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you and your program, go to finalforms.com/Jake. Once again, that's finalforms.com/Jake to get started on the Final Forms team. We also want to thank Violet Defense for their support. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products, or if you'd like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of their technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience you need. Go to violetdefense.com for more information about their great products. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive for their support. You know, it's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every year while creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com and see exactly what their fantastic products can do for you. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to thank Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They've got a variety of interactive touchscreen video consoles, along with an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. For ideas on how to showcase your school's diverse history, along with their proudest moments, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com or learn more and get started with your digital Wall of Fame tribute. Give them a call at 614-981-3589 or email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank Huddle for their support. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Over 200,000 teams, including some of the best in the world, use Huddle to help their teams play better using video and analytics. Huddle is the complete performance platform. They have online tools, mobile and desktop apps, smart cameras like the Huddle Focus. There's always been analytics, but there's a whole lot more. Huddle's also built for every level of play, from club and youth programs all the way through high school and college teams. And even the pros are using Huddle to help their athletes compete at the highest level. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes, a lot of their parents, and the coaches, the college and university teams you're trying to get to recruit your kids. Okay? If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and your program and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. We also want to thank Hometown Ticketing for their support. Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. You can find out more about what Hometown Ticketing can do for you and your program by going to hometownticketing.com and talk to their experts. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for sponsoring the Athletic Director's Toolbox segment of our podcast. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack also connects you with the 95% of the parents and the student athletes who really love your program, and it gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the pros at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. We're staying local today in Florida and in Sarasota County, and our guest is James Slaton. James is the District Athletic Director for the Sarasota Public School System in Sarasota, Florida. And he's going to share a little bit about what's going on in his neck of the state. But James Slaton, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, Jake, thanks for having me. Excited about the opportunity.
Well, again, I've been down here in Charlotte County for a couple of years now in my retirement, but you and I connected in what I think is a great way. I also serve as an official for track and field meets, also high school basketball. But here I was at a junior high track meet, and here's the district athletic director helping out, making sure the kids have a great experience, just leading by example, just really made me feel good. But let's go and get started. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that 5-minute bio, where you were born, where you grew up, and kind of how your path has led you to your current position with Sarasota Public Schools.
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty diverse. I was born in California, spent time in Oregon and Washington, and then also my dad was from the South, so also spent time in Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. So kind of been all over, kind of a crazy life growing up. Went to 13 different schools until I got to college. So it forced me to be able to adapt to different environments and situations. But it also, for me as an athlete, it taught me that I had to work everywhere I went to kind of make a new name for myself. So played sports growing up. Played most of the major ones, football, basketball primarily, but fell in love with basketball. My ninth grade year, it's kind of where I decided I wanted to be a coach as well. I wanted to be a teacher from my high school basketball coach, Dean Stepp in Eugene, Oregon. Dean really had a big impact on my life. Fast forward, he is now retired. Both of his sons played Division I basketball, one at Rice and one at Gonzaga. He's written books called The Advanced Art of Jump Shooting, the Advanced Art of the Jump Shot, I should say. So he had a big impact, and I realized at an early age that I wanted to be able to have that same impact, when I got older. Fast forward, went through, played basketball at Lane Community College there in Eugene. Then I ended up transferring to Auburn University, where I ended up getting 2 degrees. I got an undergrad in PE and then a master's degree in special ed. Worked out with the basketball team at Auburn. Didn't work out for me to play there, but early on decided while I was there that I wanted to start coaching. So I started coaching at Auburn High School, which was a FAME program in the state of Alabama while I was there for a legendary coach, Frank Talbert. Also from there, went and started coaching in Macon, Georgia, back to Auburn, then to Atlanta, then down to Northport High School in Florida, then back up to Alabama to Oxford High School, a really strong athletic high school. And then most recently was at Venice High School, and this is my 5th year as the district athletic director for the school district. So kind of pretty diverse. Ended up getting my specialist degree in ed leadership, which really, you know, it's funny. I was looking back at some of my college projects for some reason I still had. And one of my goals, and I wrote this when I was 21 years old, that I wanted to one day be a head coach, a head basketball coach. And then I also one day wanted to be an athletic director. And, you know, it was something that I kind of set my sights on early on. And, you know, it's funny looking back, you know, I'm a Christian, and it's been very obvious that God has really directed my steps. And I'm just extremely blessed to be where I am. You know, most people, they talk about jobs being, you know, a 4-letter word. And I get to come and do something I enjoy every single day. And it has its challenges, just like all fields do. But at the same time, it's something that I love. And I have a chance to be a part of something big here in Sarasota County. And you know, here on the podcast, hopefully encourage others out there wanting to do the same thing.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that. And as I was listening, we have quite a few similarities. You know, I was at a number of schools and programs and a number of states. I was actually born and raised in Oregon and started my career there. I was born in the Dalles and then went to high school over in Vancouver, Washington, actually Battleground, Washington, but taught all up and down the Oregon coast, the Willamette Valley. I coached for 5 years at Umpqua College in Roseburg, Oregon.
Yeah, Roseburg had good basketball.
Oh, very cool. What I got to put an age on you. What years were you at Lebanon, or you mentioned you were at Lebanon?
I was at South Eugene High School.
South Eugene. Okay. Yeah.
I was there in the late 80s.
Okay.
Would have been like 88, 89.
All right. I'm trying to, that's a story for another day, but it's very cool to hear all those connections, including, you know, the back and forth. Great stuff. For our listeners, we're visiting with James Slaton today. He's the district athletic director for the Sarasota Public School System, Sarasota, Florida. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Final Forms for their support of the Educational AD Podcast. Final Forms is the industry leader in registration, but you need to know this. Final Forms is more than just forms. Final Forms is a team, it's technology, and it's a service that helps schools with compliance, with communication, and even risk management. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with mobile accessibility, has reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms that go with athletics. It can help with team communication, with attendance, and even certification management for coaches. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. And it does this using secure language translation and ADA compliance. You know, it's time that you talked with a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake and find out exactly what Final Forms can do for you. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest again is James Slaton. He's the District Athletic Director for Sarasota Public Schools here in Florida. James, a lot of us start out as teachers and coaches. Some of us spend our whole career there. Okay, you know, you made that change to athletic director and even another level, county or district AD. Talk a little bit about that, moving to the other side of the desk. What were some of the excitements? What were some of the challenges of that position?
Well, Jake, I mentioned early on that was a goal. At one point, I wanted to be an athletic director. And when I set that goal, I didn't even know what that meant at the time. But now, sitting where I am now, honestly, the coaching part was the hardest thing for me to give up. Yep. Late in my career, coaching wise, I kind of told myself, I don't think I can give it up, because coach was who I was. That title coach, carries a big significance. It did in my life when I was a player, and then hopefully it did for a lot of my players when I was a coach. But it was hard. My identity was tied into that of being a basketball coach. And so it was a tough decision. It was one I agonized over and prayed over. But at the same time, I knew that I wanted to have a larger impact on a bigger organization as a whole, where instead of just my program, I was having an impact. I could potentially, have an impact across the district. We have thousands and thousands of athletes, hundreds and hundreds of coaches, many athletic directors. So it's an opportunity for me to hopefully provide some of that leadership that I've been given over the years. So it was a tough transition. It wasn't easy. We'll probably talk about some of the other things later, but for me, jumping into that realm, I think coaching just prepared me for it. Because when you run a large programs, and I've had some where I've been responsible for 6 teams. I've also run some big AAU organizations where I've had up to 10 teams. So when you do that, you're preparing yourself to deal with that bigger group as a whole, with the parents, with community members, with all your stakeholders, your kids, of course. So it prepared me. I think my coaching, and obviously in the classroom teaching as well, but I think that being a head coach of some large programs over the years really prepared me for being an athletic director.
Yeah, boy, I can really relate to that. I was fortunate. My first AD job was a smaller private school, but I was also the head football coach, and I kept both hats. And then when I went to another school that hired me just as their AD, it was tough to give up that coaching. It really, it gets into your heart, gets into your soul. But I eventually learned to, hire great coaches and let them coach the team. So I didn't have to worry about that as much. You're at Sarasota Public Schools. So you've got high schools. There is, middle school sports there. Share with our listeners, your system and how you run that just a little bit. Are there building ADs, or are you much more hands-on because you don't have that? How does it work in the Sarasota school system?
Yeah, so our middle schools all have an AD, and so we're fortunate there. So I'm more hands-on with the scheduling, the officials, that kind of thing with our middle schools, because those ADs, they don't have the time during the day to do as much of that kind of organizational stuff. So I do a lot of hands-on with our middle schools. With our high schools, I am super involved, but I also believe kind of what you were saying about hiring great people. We have great people at all of our high schools, and I provide direction and leadership and opportunities for feedback back and forth. We meet monthly. We give out updates weekly. We're in constant communication, and it's a two-way street. We help each other. Our goal is obviously for the district to have a place, but also each individual school be the best they can be. So we're working really hard at that. We also have an athletic secretary at each school, an assistant athletic director at each school, and then an assistant principal that has a focus in athletics as well. So we take athletics very seriously in Sarasota County. And we've been fortunate. We've been some of the best in the state, both on the field and court, but also in the classroom, as we've won many academic state championships along with athletic state championships over the past several years. And then we honor those. We make sure that we honor them in our board meetings. We just had one at our last board meeting Tuesday night that we honored. So any chance we get to promote those programs. We do it every chance we get.
Wow, really sounds like you're doing things the right way. I always like to say that, every single student at a school, any school, every single student's involved in academics, but the next most, participated program is athletics. And so it behooves a school. It sounds like you guys are doing it and then some to recognize the important part that athletics plays in that high school experience. Great stuff.
Yeah, and for a vast majority of our community, they're not aware of that. And any chance we can get, in fact, I was in a meeting today, and it was a big meeting, and I can probably talk about it here in a minute, something we were able to accomplish at that meeting. But, I said, if it wasn't for athletics, I would not have made it through. I was the first person from my dad's side of the family to go to college. I ended up getting 3 degrees. And it's not because I'm this smart, great. It's because I had great, smart people in my life that through sports helped me have a vision for a future. And for a lot of our kids, we don't want to admit it, but sports may be the only reason they're there. And without sports and without that kind of leadership, we're doing some stuff with our bottom quartile of student athletes that I don't think anybody's doing, that I've heard of. It actually was some advice came from my superiors. And we're going to have our athletic directors are going to have a class where they're going to have those student athletes that are struggling a little bit academically and hopefully have a chance to mentor and lead them to improve their academics.
No, I think it's a great idea. I can't imagine an athletic director that wouldn't welcome that opportunity to work with kids like that. We're going to hear some more, but we're going to take a quick break. Again, we're visiting today with James Slaton. He's the district athletic director for the Sarasota, Florida public school system. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thanks to Huddle for their support. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Over 200,000 teams, including some of the best in the world, use Huddle to help their athletes play better using video and analytics. Huddle's the complete performance platform. They have online tools, mobile and desktop apps, smart cameras like the Huddle Focus. There's always been analytics, but there's a whole lot more. Huddle's also built for every level of play, from club and youth teams all the way through high school and college programs. And even the pros are using Huddle to help their athletes perform at their best. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes, a lot of their parents, and the coaches of the college teams you're trying to get to recruit your kids. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and your program and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is James Slaton. He's the District Athletic Director for the Sarasota County Public Schools here in Florida. Coach, one of the things that we really like to do, I enjoy doing it, is hearing the stories about the mentors that our guests have had. So none of us get to where we're at on our own. So who are some of the people that have helped you along the way?
Well, I talked about Coach Stepp a little bit earlier. He's definitely one that stands out to me. From a coaching perspective, I think I took a lot of his personality, the way he attacked the game, the fundamental type of coach he was. We had classes at South Eugene High School called advanced sharpshooting, and we weren't shooting guns, we were shooting basketballs. And we would break your shot down. He ended up writing books about it, but we would break your shot down from your toes to your fingertips. And you could always tell a South Eugene basketball player because how pure their form was. So I learned a lot about that, but also just how to treat people, that he cared for his players. I learned that very early on. And then moving on towards the end of my high school, probably a youth pastor had the next biggest impact on me. Rusty, we're still friends to this day. He's now a pastor in Kansas. We talk all the time, but just, obviously as a Christian, he was a former athlete. He played college basketball as well. So we had a good connection there. Ended up actually living with him for a little while my senior year. So he was a huge impact on me. And then I could go on and on down the line, even folks that probably weren't as positive as those first two. But one thing that I've learned over the years is even when you see things that aren't being done the right way, or people that aren't doing things the right way, you can learn what necessarily not to do. And so I've tried to take a little bit from everybody I've coached with, I've worked under, I've worked alongside, good or bad, that I can either use in my profession and use in my coaching and use in my teaching, and now in my leadership, or things I need to stay away from. So I tried to take that as a positive. And I think learning is something that, for those of us that desire to improve, it's something that you need to continue to work on. I don't have a desire. I know you're a doctor. I don't have a desire to become a doctor, but who knows? You never know. But I think that general desire to want to learn, to stay involved, networking, I think, is extremely big. I learned that early on. And in this profession, it's huge. And if you had a question about something I couldn't get you an answer to, it wouldn't take me but about 2 minutes. And I can send a text out to athletic directors all over the state, and I could get that answer very quickly. I need to get a survey. My superintendent asked me for information, and people are amazed at how quickly I can get that to them. And it's because of not myself, not my knowledge, but the knowledge of our group. So that networking group is instrumental.
Let's go and follow that thread a little bit. When you and I met at that track meet, we started talking, and you had mentioned, I think, that you had heard me present at FIAAA. Talk a little bit about that awareness. As an AD, how did you first hear about FIAAA, and where are you on your journey with NIAAA at this point?
Yeah, so this is something that I'm definitely working towards. I've taken several of the classes. In fact, the one I'm taking next week. Which one am I taking? Organizational one. Which one was it? I should have that. Okay. Yeah, I'm taking the Enhancing Educational Organization. So yeah, I'm definitely working towards that. CAA, and I know you're a CMAA. So that's something I desire to continue to improve. Time is pretty tough right now. I just recently got remarried about 6 months ago, and now have 6 kids.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. She's also an educator, so we have some similar interests there. But at the same time, it is tough. It is tough to manage it all. But at the same time, I've decided this is something I want to do, so I'm going to take baby steps to get there. But there's a huge group here in Florida, especially, that are very involved in FIAAA, and I've kind of partnered alongside them. So it's been something that's it's work, but at the same time, it's something that's enjoyable, and it's such a great organization in my few years that I've been involved, and I'm looking forward to the future with it.
I'm going to let you follow up with that again. When you and I were first talking, I think I asked you, I think I remember I asked you if you knew Dan Talbot, who's, one of our FIAAA board members. And you said that you had reached out to Dan and some other people when you first got the job at Sarasota. Talk a little bit about that, because I think that's a great example of, using and developing that network.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the first things I did when getting this job, was to go visit other county athletic directors, district athletic directors, and just, I just picked their brain. I mean, what do you think? What should I be doing? What has been good for you? What things should I stay away from? But Dan was one of those. I was able to go spend some time with him, actually spent an entire day with him. It was great. And he's one of the guys in my group that if I need something, he's there. Same for me. If he needs something, I'm here. But I think that is something that especially when you're young, you think you have to do it all on your own, but that is such a big mistake. If I had one bit of advice for any new athletic director or coach, just work on that network, those relationships that you have with your peers and those that are maybe further along than you are so big.
I appreciate you sharing that. Save some of those tips for your toolbox segment. We'll do that at the end of the podcast. But again, great examples of how we can get better, whether it's, formally through the LTC program with NIAAA or just informally going out and visiting, spending a day with another athletic director. Very cool stuff. We're going to take another quick break, but please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive for their support of the Educational AD Podcast. It's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department these days, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every single year while creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com for more information and find out exactly what their fantastic products can do for you. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. Check them out. You'll be very impressed. Welcome back, everyone. We're visiting today with James Slaton, who's the District Athletic Director for the Sarasota, Florida Public Schools. James, one of the things we try to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. What are some things that you and your coaches do at Sarasota that when you take a step back, you can say, boy, we really do a great job with this? Do you have any best practices you can share?
Yeah, and several of these are ones that I learned from some other ADs. Actually, this first one I'm going to talk about is the communication, which is so important to make sure you're keeping everybody, all your stakeholders on the same page. So I do something every Monday. I call it the Monday morning quarterback. And every Monday, I will send it out across the district to all of our athletic folks just to make sure they're all on the same page. Could be updates, could be things that are going on. I also send one called athletic updates where we talk about the sporting events that are going to be happening over the next couple of weeks, just to start promoting that, getting it out there. That's big. And then, our monthly athletic director meetings that we started doing. So we, pre-COVID, we were rotating schools, and now we're back to that a little bit. But, we were Zooming kind of before COVID. We were doing that monthly. And then we got back to live a little bit this year. So we'd work on that. We talked a little bit about some of the recognitions we do at our board meetings. I think that's extremely big. If you're not doing that already, a chance to get in front of the board. They televise ours. It goes across our communities. I think that's important. A big one that we started this past year is called 3D coaching through the 3D Institute. And we're putting in place to where all of our volunteer and paid coaches will go through 3D coaching modules. And we're going to continue that process as we move forward. We believe that character piece is something that we sometimes gets left out of athletics, and it's left to coaches to kind of figure out on their own. So we wanted to be able to give them something for their toolbox that they could use. And then our continued facility improvement is something that I've really strived for, that I've really pushed. We are doing one school a year. We're putting artificial turf and rubber tracks on every school. That's something I was working on early on, and we were able to get that started 2 years ago. So we're on our third school. In fact, Northport's getting their field put down right now as we speak. That was big. And then just continuing to work and fight for athletics. We've been able to increase our transportation budget, which is, sometimes tough to deal with, but we've gotten now to where we have each school gets $50,000 a year for transportation, which goes a long way for supporting those kids. And then the last thing that actually just have been working on for the past couple years, but am finally in the final stages of getting it approved, which is our athletic directors going full-time. And, it's something that is needed. It's such a demanding job that requires so much attention, really 24/7, 365. Athletic directors don't get to turn off their cell phones. I mean, if they get a call, and me included, if I get a call on a Friday night at 11 o'clock from a principal, I know it's something important that I need to take it. I've got athletic directors that'll be in a deer stand, and you can get a hold of them because they understand that importance. So we've been able to push forward with getting them full-time, which is something that was very needed.
Boy, those are some really cool initiatives. Again, you talk about transportation and the funding. I think people on the outside, they think it's just ordering uniforms and football helmets and tennis balls. They don't realize that, the officials, the transportation, we're already in the hole thousands of dollars before the game even starts, because of those things. So great stuff. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out, and we'll do this at the end of the show too, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, what's the best way that they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can look up on the district website and find me, or you can email me, which that email's on the district website. It's james.slaton, S-L-A-T-O-N, james.slaton at SarasotaCountySchools.net.
Okay. Again, James Slaton, Sarasota County Public Schools. We're going to be back with some more wisdom, but please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support. Vital Signs is on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They've got a variety of interactive touchscreen video consoles, along with an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. For ideas on how to showcase your school's diverse history, along with your proudest moments, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com or learn more and get started with your digital Wall of Fame tribute. Call them at 614-981-3589, or you can email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is James Slaton, the District Athletic Director for Sarasota Public Schools down here in Florida. Coach, one of the questions I've been asking our ADs has to do with this idea of toughness. 100 years ago, when I was in high school, it was very common for coaches to say, come on, guys, you got to be tough, or come on, Jake, you got to suck it up. And we knew what they meant. But I think over the years, we figured out better ways to communicate those ideas to kids. But toughness, in my opinion, still remains an important part of the athletic experience and of life. So my question is, how can we help kids to develop toughness while also being sensitive to the very real social, emotional challenges that a Generation Z kid is experiencing that we never had to go through? Do you have any advice for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great topic and one that sometimes gets overlooked. And, that old adage of just be tough, I mean, what does that really mean? And I do believe in sports, in life, in your family, with your marriage, there is a form of toughness that is so crucial. And it's not just physical toughness, which of course is important for athletics, but also a mental toughness. When things get going the wrong way, when things get hard, how do we handle them? So I think teaching that is big, both from the physical and the mental. One of the things I did as a coach, and it was about developing that we were the toughest team on the floor, and we took pride in that. And how do we do that? Well, that's how we practice. We have drills set up to help us with that. We have training that helped set us up for that. And then to really praise that with them when they are showing that toughness. And there's going to be times when they fail, and being able to accept that learn that we are going to have failure. It's okay to fail, but at the same time, can we grow from that? And I remember one of the drills we called it ball tough, and early on they didn't like it, and we talked about it, and you're not going to like it. And it was about, we went for 5 minutes, and they couldn't dribble, and they had to be as tough with the ball as they could. That we would let the defense foul them, we'd let them push them, hold them, grab them, but they couldn't turn the ball over. And well, what fast forward, what happened with our team was it got late in the game, and if it's 3 minutes to go and we've got a 4-point lead, you're going to have to tackle us to get the ball out of our hands. And they would get excited about that opportunity, where they had developed that mental and physical toughness that I don't care what you do to me, I'm going to be able to handle it. So I think that is important, that you train for it. And then at the same time, like I talked about, that it's okay to fail, that when we fail, that's just a learning experience. It's an opportunity for us to grow. And I think so many times coaches, yes, we want perfection, but that's not realistic. And when we're not perfect, you know what? It's okay to pat them on the back, and you know what? It's all right. And to be as positive as you can through both the successes and the failures.
Yeah, I love that whole process about, here's the drill. You might not like it. They didn't like it, but you talked about it and communicated, well, this is why we're doing it. This is important. And then they end up embracing that and looking forward to those opportunities, where they could, now do it in a game and not just in a practice.
Many drills you can do like that. I mean, I'm going back to my basketball days, but, diving on the floor after a loose ball, that's not a natural skill that most people have, but that's something you need to learn how to do. And then same thing with taking charges. And our teams would get to be where they would celebrate that. We would make a big deal out of it. And it was almost like when they would see a teammate do that. I had one time we were playing in a playoff game against Lehigh, and we had one play. We had 3 guys dive on the floor to keep a ball alive, and then we finished it with a layup. And I had the opposing coach call me after the game and said, I've got to get that video to be able to show my guys that's how you lay your body on the line. And our kids, it became that they were excited about that kind of thing. And that's when you've got their heart, when they get excited about something that's really shouldn't be excitable.
No, absolutely. That is spot on. James, you impressed me, as I said, that day at that middle school track meet. Here's a guy, the county AD, but he's out there, sleeves rolled up, diving in, helping out at every level. And this has been really cool, getting to find out, some commonalities that we have, career-wise and traveling the country-wise. But we're not done yet. We always end with our Athletic Director's Toolbox segment, which is sponsored by Athletic Surveys. So we're going to take a quick break, hear from Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. But when we come back, we're going to find out what James Slaton is going to put in his Athletic Director Toolbox. Please stay with us. We want to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the Athletic Director's Toolbox segment of our podcast. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also gives the 95% of the parents and the players who really love your program a voice, and it helps them demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to check the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Well, we've reached that time in the podcast where we're going to put our guest, James Slaton, on the spot and ask him what 3 tools would he put into a brand new athletic director's toolbox. James Slaton, what do you got for us?
Yeah, and really, I mean, if we wanted to go on, we could probably put 100 in there, but it's just our jobs are so diverse, and there's so many things that we have to do, and with the ever-changing world we live in. But if I had to do three, I would think number one are relationships. You have to develop positive relationships with all your stakeholders. And you've got to decide early on who are those stakeholders. So if I'm a coach, if I'm an athletic director, but for ADs especially, your students, your athletes, your coaches, your staff at your school, your administration at your school, the community as a whole, some of those big community organizations that we're fortunate enough to have here in Sarasota County. Those are very important. Even at a higher end, your mayor, your sheriff, all those folks, it's so important to have that relationship that when, times get tough or you need something or you need help, you have people that you can lean on and reach out to. So I think those relationships are number one. Without those, it's hard to be that single man on the wall by yourself. The next part I would say is, and it's not one that I enjoy, but it's organization. You've got to be organized. You've got to have timelines. You've got to keep yourself focused on what's important. Whether for me is, I know that every Monday I've got to get my Monday morning quarterback out. I've got to get my athletic updates out. I've got to have my monthly meeting. So I need to be preparing for that meeting. All those big events that you have going on, if you're not organized, you're going to struggle with that. And then the last part I would say is that continually wanting to learn from, programs like the FIAAA, NIAAA, but also from others. That networking that I talked about a little bit earlier, that if you try to be a lone ranger, it's going to be really tough in this field. But having those people that you can lean on for advice, for encouragement, and also be able to do the same, I think is so important. So developing those, having those as group contacts. I have several that are group texts that I send out to small groups, big groups, different groups. Same thing with email chains, being able to get feedback and information, using some surveys that I can send out easily and get information that's very valuable that I can use for my job or for the job of my athletes, coaches, and athletic directors.
Wow. All great stuff. I'm sure you saw me scribbling those down. Once again, thanks so much for being on the podcast. And again, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit, and listeners, I think you really should. What's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Anytime. Email would be best. James.Slaton, S as in Sam, Laton, James.Slaton at SarasotaCountySchools.net.
James Slaton, thanks so much for being a guest on the podcast today, and all the best moving forward, with your teams and your programs.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it. And good luck to anyone. Anyone needs anything, please reach out.
Okay. For our listeners, the Zoom recordings of all of these interviews are uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening today. Come back again just about every day for new content. And I want to give you a heads up. We have 2 new books coming out. Dan Como, who does our Mentoring Minute on Tuesday, his book, The Mentoring Minute, will be coming out at the probably the end of April, first week of May. So that'll be on Amazon. Take a look for that. It'll be Dan's 30 episodes transcribed into a book. And the second edition of the Athletic Director's Toolbox, which James Slaton's tools will be a part of that. That's going to be coming out around July 1st. So take a look for those. And as always, we appreciate you listening. Come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. And before we go, we want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. You can find out more about what Hometown Ticketing can do for you and your program by going to hometownticketing.com and talk to their experts. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Thanks again for listening to the Educational AD Podcast. Please visit our sponsors as they make all of this possible. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.